I'm writing a paper on language and gender and American politics for my linguistics class. So, of course, I usually just open up Google Chrome. I start at like my opening up my Georgia Southern and starting at the library database we have. I don't really go anywhere else anymore, as like being 3 years into college. I guess it doesn't really matter by where I log in. Let me just do it.
Should log you on as me.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I was about to put mine in.
No.
Is that fine? I think that was it.
Try it. See.
There you go. So I'll just do it. I didn't know if it was going to be different for a teacher. So, library resources. Start with our resource, which is Galileo. And I particularly like sifting through articles. I don't really do physical copies, so I'm less familiar with physical copies. I wish I was more familiar with physical copies of literature. So I'm going to type in just language and gender in America. I usually start really vague. A lot of times when I begin these research projects, my professors give us free reign of what we really want to work on. So like, the topic of the class would be like language and like politics or like other language and most everything. But they usually ask us to find something that we're actually interested in. So I'm used to starting very vague. Especially, it helps with being like overwhelmed with like so much articles to come back, so much information. So let's see. It doesn't make it as like boring, I guess, because I usually find something interesting and I start from there. A lot of my colleagues start from the other way around and get really specific, and then they go out. I find that more difficult. Okay, so from this I'm getting languages in other gender and language in other regions like sub-Saharan Africa and just other countries, and I would look at this and be like, I don't know what I did wrong. And I continued to look, and I found, looks like a book of gender and political communication in America, and that looked really interesting. It talks about rhetoric representation in this display. So like this gives off, of course, keywords that I've like put into the search box and it popped up. But this is a book, and I usually don't like messing with books because that means I will have to use the interlibrary system, which I've used before, but if you're really like one of those introverted students, you try like just to stay home and do your research. You don't really want to go out and get it. But I like the interlibrary system is actually really useful. It's not as daunting as most students see it. So I usually pass the books and I stay with articles. They're also easier to cite, in my opinion. Well, I believe the library system cites it for you within it. That's also how I cite. I don't use EasyBib or any of those programs anymore because my library system holds the citations. So I'm still scrolling and I still see other language and gender topics in other countries, so I continue down the full page. Debunk. America boys get better grades in English. Only America equal to the race. Gender, language, and wills. Gender equality in countries. Gender neutral, gender and genderless. So I found an interesting article that kind of is the same topic but more specific. The article is "The Gendering of Language: A Comparison of Gender Equality in Countries with Natural Gender, and Genderless Languages." And since that's pretty recent topic, or can come up in recent discussions, I usually click things like this because it can usually spark a really interesting project. Trying to keep my projects different, unique, so I can keep my interest. So I opened the article, and of course first I look for the abstracts. If I can't find abstracts, I usually read the first couple sentences and the last couple sentences of the whole article. Real related minimum. So, the first couple sentences in abstract, it talks about grammatical gender and how grammatical gender can shape how people interpret the world around them, which is usually my focus goes to how like language shapes our individual world. It's my favorite to put into words. So I would capture this article. Usually I open up a Word doc, or have a Word doc already open. I will also bookmark it, and I have like a folder of like scholarly articles on my computer if I'm doing it that way. That's usually if I'm just doing research and not writing the paper, because 50% of the time I do those separately. If I'm good about my work, I'm a bad procrastinator any other time. So, open up Word. I usually snap 2 screens. Oh god. And then, where's the other screen? Oh, Word doc. And for Galileo, it's pretty handy because it comes with most of the citations you would need. And for my particular discipline, I cite an APA, which one really annoying thing is it's particularly hard to find all the different ways to cite APA. Purdue OWL is pretty helpful, but I still find it. I'm less familiar with APA, even though I write in it more than MLA, because I've studied that way more in high school, and it's a little bit harder to keep up with learning new cite styles while I was in college. I mean, that might just be personally. So I captured the cite. I just put it in my Word doc. Usually this ends up turning into my reference page. Just me citing it, and I edit it later. So I close the cite box. And if I have time, or if I'm really just researching it, I just scan through the article. I really feel bad because I should be reading the whole article, but that's just don't have all the time in the day. So I try to sift through it first over. Then when I'm writing my research paper, I come back to it and like look at how they separated their columns. Like this one separated gender and language, and then they go from that and language and gender equality, and I look through those chunks for what I need. So I save every way to get back to this article, every way I can, and so like I can always find it just in case. I go back to my original search box, and now that I am going down this topic, I can usually either change my terms, my keyword terms, or I finish this page looking through this page, because I feel like if I found it on this page, I might find something similar, because that's usually how Galileo works. but I'm gonna just change the term since it was such a vague start anyways. And I'm changing the terms to genderless languages. Genderless languages. Did I spell that right? I hope I spelled that right. Okay, I spelled that right. Genderless language in... Actually, I'm just going to search that. If this particular topic is unfamiliar, but familiar at the same time to me, so I usually stay vague. I usually have a problem with that because if I stay too vague, I always come to my professors saying that I can't find certain articles, or I find too much, and they always point out that's like a problem of mine because I ended up doing 2 research projects at once because I just overwhelm myself with how much information I want to find. I wish I could be taught, or I wish I learned when is a good stopping point for yourself. Just some like key components to know that you found what you needed, or you're looking down too much of a narrow path. Because I've had countless times where it's like too late, and I get to the end of the project and I realize I don't really have the information I really wanted to make this project fully fleshed out. That's fine. So on the new search page, I have a lot of books. So I would usually like just get my fear out of that and just like actually use books. I don't mind using books, but I'm just more familiar with articles. Let's see. Bantu, gender systems, and second grammatical gender system. So one thing I bump into while researching, especially in my discipline of linguistics, is that a lot of stuff are also in different languages, or they're about different languages. And like one thing I'm not really good at is sorting or doing advanced search on Galileo Discovery. I feel like I can play around with it. Like I play around with most of the research tools I have, but playing around is not the same as actually learning a clear path. So I usually just struggle through the stuff I actually don't really need. I don't even like throw it away, so I feel like that hinders me. Okay. Language reform. Okay, so I found this article called Singular They, an Empirical Study of Gender and Pronoun Use. What I have learned is that my hindrance is finding too much information on one topic and staying vague. So like I also try to micromanage myself, and if I find like one word, I try to stick with it. So like I'm starting to like, if this topic I feel like I should stick with the one nuance of it, so I'm going to stick with pronouns in genderless language. And that's really how I set off my projects, and now I have actually one single thought. I just opened the article. And of course, I read the abstract like usual. Present study of English language has been discussed at length in past decades. Information. And if it's a good article, I save the sources and I save bookmark it. Sometimes I run into things where I can't find the article because it's not at the school. And click find and it's not at the school. I have a bad habit of just dropping that article, which I should be using the interlibrary system. So I would honestly just drop that article, and it could have been a really great article.